What are some of the key clauses that someone should incorporate in a partnership agreement?
I think that's an important thing. And often these partnerships, these business combinations don't survive. They have disagreements about how the business should be operated, etc.
There's a partnership or corporation is formed where family is involved. Can there be any issues with that, or do you see that happen quite often?
The problem is with family businesses, if it doesn't work out, you not only lose a business, partner, but you lose a family member.
A lot of restaurants and retail businesses fail,
Well,
right?
they do. Now, I was in the restaurant business very early on in my career. You make one mistake and you lose a customer for life. It's a tough business.
What are your thoughts on big retail stores closing in today's age?
Customers buying stuff online. Most people are busy online, and that affects these bricks and mortar stores.
What can a business person do who's worked hard to train the employee, get them ready, and then they find out that they're leaving them for a competitor or they've just left them?
Focus on your employees. Because if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers.
Hi, I'm Manish Kapoor tuning in from Canada, and I'm really glad you're here. This is where we sit down with some amazing minds, leaders, creators, and change makers to talk about the things that matter. Every episode is a chance to learn something new, get inspired, or just hear a fresh take. So let's get into it.
Today on the Kapoor podcast, I'm joined by Jeff Dennis, a lawyer, serial entrepreneur, best-selling author, and public speaker with over 30 years of experience advising and operating several companies. Currently a counsel and entrepreneur at Fasken, Jeff has worked across industries from real estate to film to finance and is known for giving founders honest, tough love advice to help them succeed. He's also the co-author of the best-selling book, Lessons from the Edge, a collection of powerful stories about mistakes and lessons learned by entrepreneurs. I'm excited to dive into his insights on the struggles small businesses face and how to overcome them. So let's deep dive into this interesting conversation. All right, Jeff, thanks for being here and doing this with us. We greatly appreciate this. We'll start with a few fun questions and then we'll get down to the real stuff. So, Jeff, if you could have dinner with one business icon, past or present, who would it be?
I think it would be Steve Jobs. He's such a creative person and really changed the world in so many ways. And I think it would be quite interesting. I read his biography by Isaacson, and I found it quite fascinating. I read all those biographies that he's written on the so-called geniuses, and I really enjoyed those books.
Yeah, that would be quite an interesting conversation for sure. And so, Jeff, do you have any secret superstitions?
I don't really think so. I mean, I'm very sort of do things a certain way, and I'm pretty rigid in the way I do things. Like I get up at a certain time, and I eat at a certain time, and I have a daily walk at a certain time. So I'm quite regimented in that. I don't know if that would be considered superstition.
No, that won't be.
But I'm quite rigid in the way I kind of live my life.
Perfect. That's good. Whatever works, right? Okay. So if you had to start a business in Canada and you had $10,000 with you, what business would you start?
Well, I did start a business. During the pandemic, I started a business called althealth.me.
Okay.
And it's a website for the alternative health and wellness space. It's sort of a cross between Facebook and Amazon. Mm-hmm. The Facebook piece is we have what we call channels, and these are like Facebook groups, and they're for different issues. There's a diabetes channel, a weight loss channel, Lyme disease channel, etc. And you go to these channels and there's content that people post and share. And if you're interested in one of those topics, you can read all about the issue through the content that's been posted.
Okay.
The Amazon piece is we have a marketplace of over 18,000 products that are related to those channels. It's all unregulated. I mean, we're not selling pharma, we're not selling cannabis or anything that requires a regulation. It's all alternative health and wellness products and remedies.
Interesting. So how much did it cost for you to start this?
Well, it's been sort of bootstrapped. I probably over time I've spent maybe a couple $100,000
Okay.
between developing the website, attracting people, some marketing and things like that. I certainly could have spent more if I had it, because the business really requires exposure and promotion, and I haven't really had the resources on hand to do that. So I've pretty much bootstrapped it myself.
I see. Okay, perfect. So now we'll talk about the topic in question today, which is about small businesses. So, first question: do you think Canada is a good place for small businesses?
I do. I've always lived here. I mean, I went away to school at one point, but short of that, I've lived here in Canada and have pursued my own entrepreneurial dreams here. And my father and my grandfather before him started businesses here and succeeded here. So, yeah, I think I mean, listen, it's not perfect. We have high taxes. There's other issues that arise from time to time, but generally speaking, I find that it's a good place to be in business.
Okay, that's good. What are some of the hidden challenges that an entrepreneur can face when they've opened a small business?
Well, it's finding product customer fit to make sure that what you're offering to the marketplace really there's demand for it and that it meets the needs of the customer. I think that's the biggest challenge.
Okay, so
You
to
know,
identify the market.
Well, it's identifying the market, but finding the right fit, the
Okay.
product fitting with the market.
The solution, yeah. Okay, okay. So that you think if someone can identify that, he can succeed in that business.
Yeah, I think so. Business is really about meeting the needs of the customer.
True.
And if you figure, often people create products without a customer in mind. They've got great ideas
Yeah.
and have sort of an instinct for what might go. I find a lot of those businesses fail because they haven't really figured out that product customer fit that's required.
Okay, okay. And then what are some of the qualities that you see in a successful entrepreneur?
Well, they just don't quit. I mean, I think that's the number one quality.
So persevere.
Yes, I mean, there's no F word, no failure.
Yeah.
Failure, if something happens and the business doesn't succeed, it's a learning experience for the next opportunity. It's not, they don't consider themselves to be a failure. It's really just part of that learning process of trying to figure it all out.
Okay, okay. So if someone gets into the business and the model they choose is a partnership, partnerships can be tricky, right? What are some of the key clauses that someone should incorporate in a partnership agreement?
Well, I assume by partnership you also mean a shareholders agreement. So in case we're dealing with a corporation versus a partnership, the problem with a partnership is there's personal liability. So, and you can't utilize a limited partnership unless if you're active in the business. So, we use limited partnerships to finance businesses that require passive investors because they don't have personal liability if something should go wrong in the business. So I would discourage partnership in the first place. I think it's a more risky business form than doing a corporation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain fields like a practice of law, for example, where you have to be operating by way of partnership. I mean, they do incorporate now,
Yeah.
but it's you're still liable, and that's the biggest issue. In terms of clauses, I think although you never want to be thinking about getting out before you get in, I think that's an important thing. Usually and often these partnerships, these business combinations don't survive. People get into disputes, they have disagreements about how the business should be operated, etc. And if you don't have some kind of mechanism inside these agreements to unwind the business and for people to go their own way, it's really hard to get out of the business. I like to say that it's like marriage: easy to get married, very ugly to get out.
Yeah. So if someone does a partnership agreement, right, or does a shareholder agreement,
what are some of the clauses that you say should be there, or say if they don't do an agreement, what kind of issues can come up?
Well, I guess the most important clause, coming back to what I just was talking about in terms of exit, is we call it a shotgun agreement, shotgun clause, and it's basically a buy-sell. So the parties one party who wants to get out will offer the other party a price, and that price is either an offer to buy or an offer to sell. And then it ensures a fairer price, because if you give a too low price, then they're going to buy you out. If you give too high a price, then you might be buying them out. So it creates a situation where it should result in a fair price.
And who assesses the valuation companies who assess?
No, whoever wants to get out makes the first offer, and that offer is both an offer to buy and a simultaneous offer to sell. The person who receives these two offers gets to choose: am I a buyer or am I a seller?
Okay.
And as I said, because you could be a buyer or a seller, it encourages you to come up with a fair price. I mean, unless there's huge discrepancy in ability to pay. If somebody's very wealthy and somebody's not, then maybe their pricing might be a little bit different because they can't afford to pay that price. But assuming the parties are fairly equal in terms of their ability to pay, it should result in a fairly fair outcome.
So do you see business owners or someone who's starting a partnership or a corporation getting into a business, they do these kind of agreements, or most
Yes.
people, they do it?
Yes.
Okay. And have you seen scenarios where they have not done it?
Yes.
So what happens in such
Well,
cases?
they end up in disputes, they end up in litigation, the business falls apart, there's no mechanism for them to have any kind of exit, and the business dies on the vine. So it's very important, and we've seen this happen many, many times. Most businesses will fail because of this kind of issue.
Okay. And so how long does it take to prepare such a agreement between the parties, and what could be a cost that could be involved in preparing such?
Well, it depends on what they want and what
Complexity.
how complex it is.
Okay.
We have in our firm we have a startup program where we have a fixed fee for various documents to
I
help
see.
them get their business started, incorporation, all the bylaws and so on, and then shareholders documentation, employment contracts, independent contractors agreements,
Okay.
Employee stock option plan, all of these kinds of things, we put them into place at the very beginning.
Okay.
The shareholder documentation is fairly standardized. We've created a sort of a standard document set. Then we encourage the parties, with a little bit of negotiation and a little bit of alteration to these agreements.
Yeah.
But the fundamental basic agreements are pretty standardized.
Okay.
And by using these standard agreements, we're able to keep the cost down because we know what it cost initially to put them together, and we're not doing a lot of work
Right.
at the time because they're taking these standardized agreements and implementing them, putting in their names, the addresses, and things like that.
Okay. What could be a dollar amount for something simple?
Well, we charge $5,000 for our startup package.
Okay.
So that's, as I said, it's incorporation, it's bylaws, it's shareholder documentation, ESOP, employment contract, independent contractors agreement, IP assignment, so putting all the intellectual property into the new company. And all of those documents together, we charge $5,000.
Okay.
But again, there's not, if it's a more complex situation,
It's going
if
to
there's
roll.
lots of negotiation, if there's lots of variation from the standard form, obviously the price can go up.
Okay, that's fair. Now, if there's a partnership or a corporation is formed where family is involved, right, or people have personal relations, can then be any issues with that, or do you see that happen quite often?
It's not unusual. I mean, there's many, examples we could think of family businesses. The problem is with family businesses is if it doesn't work out, you not only lose a business, partner, but you lose a family member.
Yeah.
So you got to be really careful. often what we see with families is, people raising capital, and the first place they go is friends and family. And again, if the business doesn't succeed, that's a surefire way for families to end up in disputes and bad blood and so on. So you've got to be pretty sure
That you want to get
that if
into
you
it.
want to do it. And secondly, you got to make sure that whoever is giving you the money knows that if it doesn't work out, they're going to lose it, and that there's not going to be these bad feelings. It's just part of, what happens with business sometimes.
What kind of exit clauses? Are there any special exit clauses when families are involved, or it's just general?
It's the same, I would say. I don't think you need anything too special.
Okay.
Again, the shotgun. But if you get to a shotgun situation, it's usually the relationship is deteriorated, beyond the point of no return. In my experience with shotgun situations, you might initiate the exit using the shotgun notice, but then ultimately the parties will come together and negotiate some exit in some price and so on that is slightly different than the initial offer of the shotgun. It's more of a tool to initiate the process and to make sure that it comes to a conclusion, because one way or another you're a buyer or you're a seller.
So who kind of supervises the negotiations? Is there a third party involved? Are lawyers involved? Do they do it themselves?
Well, it could be. It really varies. I mean, usually with these agreements, you need a lawyer. I mean, people can download this stuff on the internet, but the problem is that they don't really know what they're reading.
Right.
The Canadian Venture Capital Association, the CVCA, has taken our shareholder documentation and is providing it for free online.
Okay.
The problem is there's 3 documents. So as a lawyer, I understand what those 3 documents do, why you need 3, and the fact that you need all 3. Sometimes when you're not educated as a lawyer and you're kind of trying to figure it out on your own, you might only sign 2 of the 3 documents or 1 of the 3 documents and not really understand that you need all 3 to fit together to answer all the issues that are going to be addressed.
I see. Interesting. This episode is sponsored by Kapoor Law Firm, your trusted real estate law firm serving all of Ontario. Whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing a home or business, their expert team can guide you through every step. And here's a bonus for our listeners. Subscribers to this show can receive a one-time coupon for their upcoming closing. Visit thekapoorpodcast.com to claim yours. What can some small businesses do if they're struggling to survive?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's usually about capital. It's raise money.
Yeah.
And, the old saying, raise more than you need, spend less than you have, because invariably it takes longer, costs more, and whatever budget you set is usually wrong. So if you're going to raise money, raise more than you need, and at least by your initial budgeting, and be very frugal with it. Don't go out and buy the pool table or the ping pong table for the office. Make sure that, you're taking care of your people.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. And then have you seen any legal oversight, something that people have missed if there's a promising startup?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I'm going to interpret it to say that we use a special document these days for financing called a SAFE.
Okay.
A short agreement for equity is what it stands for. It was created in Silicon Valley by one of the big incubator programs. And it's sort of like convertible debt, but it's a way for people to get into business and to get investors in their business cheaply and quickly, because it's a very simple type of document around the raising of capital.
Okay. So, Jeff, if small businesses are facing issues, right, and want certain solutions to better, right, their business, their struggles, whom should they reach out to? Are there any business coaches? Should they Google? Should they chat with ChatGPT?
Well, for me, I was a member for many, many years of an organization it used to be called the Young Entrepreneurs Organization, YEO. It's now called the EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization.
Yeah.
It's basically a non-profit club, if you will, for entrepreneurs to help one another.
Okay.
So, they provide business education, speakers, and have conventions multiple times a year where they bring in the best of breed in terms of business resources and experts to help you learn better business practices. They also run what are called forum groups.
Okay.
Forum groups are, in my case, I've been doing this for over 30 years. You have a group of between 8 and 12 other entrepreneurs from non-competing businesses who get together once a month for about 3 hours and are essentially operating as your advisory board.
Okay.
So it's, good feedback, good opportunity to learn from other entrepreneurs about their best practices, about what works for them, about, pitfalls and mistakes that people have made. And, working with other entrepreneurs in this organization was really helpful to me.
Okay.
And there's many of them. There's the YPO, which is the Young Presidents Organization. My father was a member for many, many years, and really benefited from that experience. There's TEK, which is, I don't know what it stands for, TEC, the Entrepreneurs Committee or something.
Okay.
And it's a for-profit organization like YPO or EO.
Okay.
And again, they meet once a month, have moderated sessions where entrepreneurs help one another through the help of a consultant / moderator who convenes these monthly meetings.
So anyone can join these?
There are certain criteria, like in
Okay.
YPO, your business has to do at least $10 million US in sales.
Okay.
And it used to be, I don't know if it's still the case because the world has changed, but it used to have 50 employees.
Okay.
I'm not sure they require that anymore. EO, the minimum sales are $1 million US.
Okay.
So it's not elitist in the sense that, I make $1 million.
Yeah.
It's more, peer.
Okay.
Companies that make $1 million tend to have the same kind of business problems and issues that other companies that make $1 million
Yeah,
do. And
yeah.
similarly, bigger companies that are, in the 10 million plus snack bracket will also, have to deal with similar issues of other companies in that same snack bracket. So these organizations organize themselves around that criteria in order to ensure that it's meaningful for everybody who belongs and it participates.
And is there a cost involved?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a monthly fee kind of a thing?
Well, there's a fairly, it depends on the organization, but there's usually a fairly substantial fee.
Okay.
And then, if you're going to travel to the conventions or stuff like that, those are additional costs. I mean, over the years, as a member of EO, I think I attended something like 11 or 12 conventions over many, 15 years or whatever it was. And they were in some exotic places. I mean, we once went on a cruise. I once went to, we went to Seattle and had took over the Boeing factory. And, I was in Chicago once and we took over FAO Schwartz, the toy store. So I've had a lot of very sort of cool experiences. San Diego, we went, and the final party was on board a aircraft carrier, and all the sailors and their wives and the officers were all there, and they set up the flight deck of the ship was the dance floor, and it was an incredible experience. So it is expensive in that they do these kind of unusual experiences, and those things cost money.
Interesting. So these, would you say it's more for networking or is it for like
It's
learning?
both. It's
Okay.
education for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a 3-year program at MIT through EO
Okay.
and Inc. Magazine and MIT University. And, it was a long weekend every year for 3 years where they brought in various speakers and educational resources to help you be a better entrepreneur.
Okay.
But yes, there's networking. I mean, I have friends from this organization literally all over the world. And when, I mentioned earlier before we started this conversation, I'd written a book and I did a book tour of Asia at one point, and it was in India. Well, my hosts were all the local chapters. So I spoke to the chapter in Bangalore. I spoke to the EO chapter in Mumbai and Delhi. in Kuala Lumpur, in Hong Kong, in Bangkok. And so in each city, there are, chapters of, 100 members or whatever in each place. And it's, as a Canadian here, if I'm going to do business in India, or I need a contact, or I need a lawyer, or I need whatever I need,
Yeah.
I've got contacts in those markets that can help me.
Okay.
And that's part of the networking and part of the value of the organization.
So if a small business is not making as much, making less than $1 million, for example, can they go for business coaches and discuss their issues with them?
But even EO, for example, has an incubator program. So
Okay.
if, they would help you grow to that $1 million.
I see.
And they have mentors and they have, advisors that can help you grow. In the case of startups, there's incubator programs. So there's, Mars here, there's Communitech out at Waterloo.
Okay.
There's Techstars at Y Combinator, and all of these organizations that are geared for startups.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in almost like a class of they call it a cohort, but you would go in, with 5 other companies or 10 other companies, and you would meet with them and learn from them, and together you would learn from the experts that they bring in to coach you.
Interesting. Now, say for a small business, there's a market disruption or there's a new competitor that comes in to the market, right? How does a small competitor deal with that kind of a situation?
Well, the good news about being a small player is you tend to be nimble.
Mm-hmm.
If you're big and you've got lots of, heft in your business, it's hard to pivot and hard to change. Whereas small business is much easier for them to, see the issues and pivot quickly and cheaply.
Mm-hmm.
So in some respects, it's an advantage. I mean, in other respects, you don't have the resources and you're fighting against, you're the small fish in the big ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be hard to do that. But on the other hand, being small helps you be nimble, and you can make pivots and adjustments easier than if you're a big sort of business that's stuck in its ways.
I see. So what kind of changes can a small business make if such,
Well, you can-
or what can they concentrate on to do better than their competitor?
Well, I come back to what I've said before. It's about market product fit.
Okay.
So, making sure that you do have that fit, making sure that, you're meeting the needs of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is solving their problems.
Right.
You can lay off people, you can hire people, you can hire better people. I mean, there's lots of things you can do. It really depends on the situation and what the issue and the problem is.
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people I see when they have some funds, they want to start a business, they go into the food industry, say a restaurant or a retail industry. Do you think those businesses are good, or do you think there are other businesses that people can look into?
Well, I think you got to do what you know.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's about your expertise. So if you're
Because a lot of restaurants and retail businesses fail,
well,
right?
they do.
Yeah.
But if that's what you know, that's what you stick with. Like if you're a restaurant person, I would be in the restaurant business. I wouldn't start a tech startup,
Okay.
because what do you know? I mean, you just don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah.
So I would stick to what you know.
Okay.
And I would, and I was in the restaurant business very early on in my career. We had some success with it, but it's a tough business. Like, you're working late, and it's long hours, and it's, you make one mistake and you lose a customer for life. It's a tough business.
Okay.
But people eat, so there's always demand. And so the question is, what is the restaurant? Is it an Indian restaurant? Is it a Chinese restaurant? Is it a steakhouse?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a greasy spoon?
Yeah.
And where is it? What's the market? Who's the competition? It's all of those considerations that you have to take into account before you start a business. And then you got to make sure you have the resources that you need, the deep pockets to, lease the space, furnish the equipment, hire the people. The first 3, 4, 6, 10 months, you're going to lose money till you sort of get up
Right.
up to speed. So you need to have that those resources to help you through the lean period.
I see. So we see a lot of big stores, big retail stores closing, like Bay, right? There's Macy's. These are all closing, right? What are your thoughts on big retail stores closing in today's day?
Well, they've lost touch with the market. I mean, it comes back to that issue: are they meeting the needs of the customer? Customers buying stuff online.
Yeah.
I mean, I get deliveries to my house multiple times a day. Both my wife and I work from home, so we don't go anywhere. I mean, we used to have 2 cars. We share 1 car because it sits.
Right.
I mean, I came out to Mississauga today to be with you. It's like a big outing for me. I never go anywhere.
Right.
So we do a lot of online shopping, and I don't think we're unusual. I think most people are busy online,
Yeah.
and that affects these bricks and mortar stores. Nobody's going to the Bay.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to Neiman Marcus or Walmart or whatever. They're buying online. So, if you're a retailer, you better have a pretty good online presence and, have a good online business, because these days, that's survival.
Yeah. Do you think these big stores can ever come back, especially with
Well,
Amazon?
I'm not an expert in that space, so I'd be reluctant to say too much, other than to say, they've got to retool, and they got to figure out what, the market wants from them.
Yeah.
They clearly don't want, a big store with a little bit of this and a little bit of that on multiple floors. Those days are over.
Right.
But maybe it's a combination. I needed a new pair of running shoes yesterday. I went to a store, and they didn't have my shoe that I wanted in my size and color, but they had one at their store in St. John, Newfoundland. So I bought the shoe from them, tried a different shoe on, so they knew the size and so on, and they're shipping it. It was basically an online purchase, but I did it in the store.
Right.
So here's a situation where they created sort of a hybrid experience for me, because I got what I needed,
Right.
but I still had the customer service because the guy served me and helped me, whereas I might not have bought the product online, because shoes are kind of hard to buy online because you don't know about fit.
Right.
So, that's an example of where, businesses might have to go to have this sort of hybrid mixed use type of experience where it's a little bit of in-person and a little bit of online.
True. We are also proud to be sponsored by Kapoor Vastralaya, with locations in Mississauga, Ontario, Surrey, British Columbia, and Fremont, California. For the finest selection of ethnic Indian clothing, visit your nearest store and explore their beautiful collection. And just for our subscribers, you can get a one-time discount coupon by visiting thekapoorpodcast.com and filling out the form. So, a lot of, new graduates, youngsters, are now looking to get into jobs or work for someone rather than building their own businesses. Why do you think that's the case? Is it because of their parents or their education?
Well, I think it's a good idea, frankly. I think you got to have experience before you start a business. You can't just graduate from school and jump in and be, people do it. Zuckerberg and Gates and Jobs. And, there are examples of people who come straight from school or don't even finish school and start businesses. But unless you know what you're doing, it's hard to start a business. And schools don't generally prepare you well for industry. They teach you accounting maybe, or they teach you marketing, but they don't really teach you about business per se or about a particular business.
Right.
So I think getting a job coming out of school is not a bad idea, so that you can learn an industry and see the problems. If we keep coming back to the same idea of customer, product fit, you're going to see that and understand that by growing up in a business and being in a business. You will come to understand those things. Whereas coming out of school, you may not have any idea because you just don't see it.
But how long do you stay in the job before you realize that it's time?
Well, it's hard. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule, but
Right.
5 years is probably a good period of time.
Yeah.
But when you're ready, I mean, when you see it, you know it when you see it, you know
Right.
it, you feel it. But I think having a job and learning, making mistakes with other people's money and other people's businesses can be a very positive learning experience for people.
Yeah, true. You've talked, I think, in your book about recruiting and training employees and how employees are really important and integral to a business, right? So, how does a business person or new business owner identify that this is the right employee for them?
Well, I mean, I guess you've got to start by figuring out what your needs are. Like, what do you need? And try to identify, what kind of person you need in the business. The other thing I would say is that people tend to be intimidated by, especially when you're young or new in business, you tend to be intimidated by employees sometimes. But you have to get over that. And, there's an old saying, hire better than yourself. Like, if you're hiring a financial person and you're a marketing person, don't be afraid to hire somebody who's really skilled and has that knowledge, because they're going to bring things to the table. I mean, if you already know it, you don't need them. What you need is somebody who knows something you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to identify people who are in each sort of job description that are the top of the line, that are prepared to help you take that business to the next level. That's what you want to look for.
How, like, obviously, I've had a lot of employees work for me as well, right? And there are times when I've interviewed them, and I don't know until they start work as to how good they actually are. So, what should a business person do? Like, keep them on for a few months
Yes.
as probation and check
Yes.
how they are?
Yes, that's a
Okay.
good idea. Probationary period of, say, 90 days is probably a good idea.
Good idea.
Sometimes people will give prospective employees an assignment, as part of the interview process.
Okay.
Write something,
Right.
calculate something, like prove to me that you can do this job. Show me how you would do this job,
Yeah.
and sort of audition for it is a good idea. My father was in the hotel business, and he once hired a guy who showed up to work in red socks. And the guy was not very good at his job for whatever reason. And my dad used to jokingly say he'd never hire anybody who wore red socks. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's a good criteria, but, establish your criteria.
Right.
Know it, keep it in mind. Because the one problem with entrepreneurs is they tend to be salesmen first.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're bringing in an employee and you're interviewing them, you got to be careful not to be selling them.
Right.
You want them to sell you. You want
Yeah.
them to convince you that they're capable of doing the job and that they're responsible and they're smart. Not that your business is so great, not that you're so great, not that your customers are so great. That's not really important at this juncture in the conversation.
Right.
But there's a tendency to do that, and you lose sight of the person you're hiring and may not get to the point.
So I have worked in India. I've worked in Canada as well. I see culture difference between both the countries in terms of employees. I've seen employees work in certain places in India for years, right? Once they start, they'll stay there till the end, right? In Canada, US, I've seen employees change jobs frequently. What can a business person do who's worked hard to train the employee, get them ready, and then they find out that they're leaving them for a competitor, or they've just let them?
If they're going to leave, they're going to leave. There's nothing really you can do. But I think the point is to, focus on your employees, because if you take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers.
Mm-hmm.
So, your employees are really your most important asset in many respects. And so, the more you create an environment where people love to come to work and love to contribute and feel like they're making a contribution, the better.
Yeah.
Whereas if they feel like they're disposable,
Yeah.
they will act that way and they'll leave you. My father was in the hotel business for many, many years, and after a long time, he had sold the business, and years later, the purchaser decided to turn the hotel that he'd built into condos. And they closed the business, and they had a party for all the former employees and management, and it was just to thank everybody for whatever it was, 50, 60 years of operation. And they honored my father at this event.
Okay.
And what stuck with me, I went with my sister and my father's wife to the event to watch this and to see it. And what struck me was how much his employees loved him. Like, we just heard and saw so many people come up to us that day and either show us pictures of their families who they credited to my father for, giving them a living so that they could build a family, or the new, they started as a busboy in a restaurant and now own their own restaurant somewhere, and the success they're having. And a lot of them really sort of credited my father with helping them along the way.
How did he help them?
Well, he just created an environment where they wanted to come to work.
Nice.
And they were appreciated. And they were obviously paid well enough. And, I guess I remember going to Christmas parties and Santa Claus was there. And I remember going in the summer, there would be, company picnics, and, there were ponies and stuff. And so the kids and their children were all included. And so created sort of a family environment.
Nice.
As I mentioned earlier, my father recently passed away, so I've given a lot of thought to these things. Because over the years, although I never was in his business or, worked for him, I watched it from afar and kind of observed, and I was kind of thinking to myself, like, what was it? How did he do it?
Yeah.
But there was no question, based on what I observed that day so many years ago, the love and appreciation that they had for him. It was quite... that was my takeaway.
Okay, so Canada is not doing too well in terms of small businesses surviving right now, right? What are your thoughts about that? What can small businesses do in today's economy to survive and eventually thrive?
I hate to say the same thing over and over again, but it's product customer fit. I mean, you got to find your niche. And even more so today, because there's not the same kind of luxury of customers that may come and go or try things. People are much more frugal with their money. So you better be right, and you better get that fit right, because if you're going to get people to part with their money, it's going to take getting that fit right.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is to prepare well in terms of arranging their funds for now, and then spend less, be frugal in their spending.
That, and making sure you got the right fit with the product. Like, make sure that you're meeting the needs of the customer. Because at the end of the day, that's all you got.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they'll go to the States, or they'll go to somebody else or a bigger competitor. So, you've got to have the right fit of the product to their needs. So what do they need? What are they missing? What's the demand?
Right.
You're providing supply. What's the demand? And understanding that's key and critical.
Perfect. So, Jeff, you've written the book Lessons from the Edge. What are some of the key takeaways from that book?
So the book had 5 chapters. There was one about sort of personal stuff. There was one about leadership, finance, partners, and employees. And so each chapter had 10 lessons. There were 10 stories and there were 10 lessons. It's hard to sort of come up with one per chapter, but over the years I've been able to do that in my presentations, just to sort of share with people some of the key lessons. One of them in terms of finance was what I've said already today, which is, raise more money than you need, spend less than you have.
Yeah.
In terms of employees, the key lesson is hire slow, fire fast. So
what does that mean?
That means take your time when hiring. Make sure that you've got the right fit, that the people are and we've talked about that briefly already today. But if you make a mistake, you're not going to reform them. Get rid of them. So fire them and then bring in somebody new. But take your time. Make sure that you've got the right person.
Okay.
In terms of partners, again, we talked about the key lesson, which is have a shareholders agreement. Have an agreement, because it's easy to get in, it's tough to get out.
Right.
On the personal side, it's a question of balance. Work hard, play hard, sleep hard, eat well, exercise, do all the things that your mother used to tell you. That's going to make you a better entrepreneur. And these are just some of the key lessons. Obviously, there's more. There's over 50 lessons in the book.
Yeah.
And we don't have time today to go through them all, but it's
Yeah.
the book is quite old now. It's about 15 years old, but I still get asked about it all the time because it's stories by entrepreneurs, and other entrepreneurs like to read them, and they're short stories. So entrepreneurs tend to have ADD and don't have that long attention span.
Right.
To be able to read a story in 10 or 15 minutes and just get the key points, or at the end of every chapter, there's a list of the key lessons, and all you have to do is read the lessons, not even read the stories. It's a series of shortcuts for the entrepreneurial behavior meets that kind of behavior that don't have the patience and the time to read.
Where can
War
I
and
buy
Peace.
that book?
Amazon.
Okay, perfect. This has been great, Jeff. Just one last piece of advice to our listeners. It could be anything. It could be about business, personal, anything.
Well, just do what you love. I think that's the key, because if you're in business, it absorbs your whole life. It's all day, all night. It takes up a lot of your mindset
Sure.
and mind space, and you just make sure that you love it. The one thing I've talked about my father already a couple times. It was pretty clear to me that he loved the hotel business, and he was involved in every little detail, like whether it was recipes for menus in the restaurants or the graphic design of his advertising or marketing campaigns. He hired experts, but he got involved in all of those little details.
I see.
So unless you're passionate about it, unless you really love what you're doing, it's hard to do that.
Sure.
So that's probably the best advice I can give.
Perfect. This has been great, Jeff. Once again, thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. This episode of the Kapoor podcast was proudly sponsored by Kapoor Law Firm and Kapoor Australia. If you are enjoying the show and want a one-time discount code, head over to our website, thekapoorpodcast.com, and fill out the form to receive your subscriber-only discount code. Whether you're looking for legal expertise or premium Indian ethnic wear, our sponsors have you covered. One more request to all of you, please do subscribe to the show and leave a comment to let us know what you think and how we can improve. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.